Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of MetaTalks podcast. I'm Mike. We got Quincy and Jeremy here, and we have a special guest today, Ashley, who will be joining us. So today is going to be a special episode as we're only going to be talking about Final Fantasy VII, the remake, the lore, everything that just Final Fantasy VII related.
Right, because it came out this Friday. So, I mean, if you didn't pick it up or you didn't get to play it, like some of us on this
That's me.
podcast, me too. I'm so sad.
These guys are able to. I don't even have a PlayStation at the
I bet you
moment.
people watching this will be like, "You guys aren't real fans if you didn't buy the game on the day it was released."
Right? Well, I mean, the people that got it early saying that they pre-ordered it back in like December of last year.
That's what we should have done. But it's so amazing that like of all the Final Fantasies, of course they would remake this one. I mean, it was kind of the game changer. You know, back what was it 1996? I forgot to look it up, but
97, I think.
97.
Yeah.
It was just a game changer in terms of Final Fantasy. Because I played Final Fantasy 1 and it was a game changer then, and this one was a game changer now. It was awesome.
I guess my first question that I want to ask is it still like everybody's favorite till this day, currently?
Favorite Final Fantasy?
Yeah, like have you guys played any of the other ones like 10, 8, 9, 13?
I'm a 10
Yeah.
fan. I'm a 10 fan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm a 10 fan too.
Oh, so 10 fan, yeah.
Ashley, did you play any other ones?
Yeah, I did 10, 13, and then 15. But to be honest, I don't know which one I would deem my favorite, because they're all pretty good.
Yeah, it's hard because they're all very different than one another, right?
Yeah, they are,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know which one is not my favorite. No, I'm just kidding.
Which one's not your favorite, Quincy?
9. I hated 9. That was what's his name? The Thief, yeah. I didn't like that, but I mean, funny enough, like the one that wasn't story driven, I really like Final Fantasy Tactics, but 9 I think was completely forgettable for me.
Mm. So why do you guys feel like Final Fantasy VII stands out amongst the rest? Is it because of like how it was in that period of time, as far as like storytelling? I know a big thing about it was the gameplay also, which they changed, I think, in the remake, right, Ashley?
Yeah, it's definitely not, because the old Final Fantasy VII was turn-based,
Mm-hmm.
so you can't control multiple characters at once. You have to, select a action for each of your characters as it goes through. But this one, you can actually control multiple characters.
Wow.
Well, I mean, once per, but you can switch between characters at any given time. So
I know the big thing about that game too was the materia and like how the materia worked as far as like in the gameplay of the old style.
Is that there? Oh, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
It's
No,
kind of same.
it's very like traditional. It's kept to the same aspects as it was before. The only difference I think is that you can upgrade your materia so that it does like more progressively difficult spells as you upgrade it, or level it up.
I mean, how about you, Quincy? Like, as far as like when it comes to Final Fantasy VII, like, why do you feel like it stands out amongst the rest?
I mean, it had everything. I think, like, it just had a really good story. It was set, post-apocalyptic. It was in the future. It was so different from all the previous Final Fantasies. And me and my friends growing up, we all played like all the Final Fantasies all the way up until 7. And when 7 came out for the PlayStation, we were just like, this is like unreal. It was hard to believe. And then when you played it, you just fell in love with everything and everybody, and it was awesome.
Even like the cutscenes was like ahead of its time, like
Right.
you didn't see that in any other game before.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what made it like a movie. It was like a movie.
Yeah.
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 I mean, definitely the storyline itself, really stands out as one of like one of the most complex storylines in the Final Fantasy series. It's kind of hard because it's not just about Cloud; it's about Sephiroth too.
Right. He's actually a good protagonist. I mean, antagonist. Like he's, like I think some people, like a lot of my friends, were saying that they like Sephiroth better than Cloud. Because Cloud kind of doesn't have a personality, but Sephiroth, when he kind of comes through, he's like boom. You know what I mean?
But honestly, like you don't really understand where Cloud comes from unless you played Crisis Core when it came out on PSP.
I didn't. I did not.
Yeah.
And it's like that. I think that's my biggest question for you, Ashley. Is Zach referenced a lot in the remake?
He is. Without saying too much, he is like in the original. He played the big part, so you kind of get a glimpse of that as you play through this part of the game. But I agree with you. Like a lot of Cloud's identity is kind of based off Zach just because of Crisis Core. So one of the things I'm kind of hoping they're gonna do is they're gonna do a Crisis Core remastered, which would kind of come on PlayStation 4, which is a good follow up because
Right.
they do insert him here and there. Him being Zach, so a little bit backstory on Zach will kind of help people who didn't have a PSP at that time. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not me. I was like, this game console is junk. Nah, I'm just kidding.
not that many people had a PSP, yeah, but it was really good. I thought the story for Crisis Core. I mean, Zach is actually my favorite Final Fantasy.
Same.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, maybe I gotta
Yeah.
play. I gotta play this then. I mean, if you both
he's
said
such
that,
a lovable character, and he has like the best personality, and he's just
What?
makes you think about being a hero. Yeah, he's a really good character. Yeah.
Well, plus
Yeah.
like the fact that he has like he plays such a strong role within like with Cloud and Eris and pretty much the whole Final Fantasy VII storyline. But he's never mentioned once until or he's never really a part of it really until Crisis Core comes out.
Yeah, and I think one of the things with Crisis Core that none other Final Fantasy, at least the ones I played so far, was that you actually kind of grow with him because you kind of follow him when he's not even a first class soldier. He kind of is ranking himself up, and then he kind of gets there. So you kind of bond with him because you're growing with him too. So that's kind of why I like him so much too.
I mean, what I liked about it too is like even for like Sephiroth fans, they gave Sephiroth a backstory. Also, you know, he was
Yeah.
actually a good guy before he became a bad guy.
Damn.
That's
Well,
very
you're talking about Crisis Core, right? Or are you talking
Crisis Core still, yeah.
about? Okay. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I gotta play it now. I gotta either play it or emulate it, or I gotta watch it. So
Yeah,
one of those things.
a lot actually, a lot is revealed actually in that
Yeah.
one game.
So I was reading an article about it, and this goes with the question I asked Ashley was when she was talking about making a remaster. What they're saying is because they did change a lot of the stuff in the remake, they're not too sure if they're going to remaster it, only because they might change the story around. So they're saying that they're saying it might not fit in the
Right.
remake lore of it because they're changing so much and adding so much and taking
Yeah.
away like a little bit of things, you know.
It's so
But I
funny.
think
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, I can get that, and I think you guys will understand once you complete this part. But it's kind of important to know Zach's backstory, so that's kind of why it kind of sucks because if you do have that background of playing Crisis Core, it kind of gives you a little bit more of a experience than if you didn't. So that's kind of why I was hoping they would do a remaster. But since you pointed that out, I could see that too.
So that being said, I think it would be totally cool if they don't remaster it, but in the next game it has like a flashback mission of Zach and you play as Zach. I think that would be pretty cool if they won't remaster it.
I've seen that. I mean, I've seen that with other Final Fantasies too, where you kind of like go into different characters. You get to play them, right? Like, and like I think it was Final Fantasy 10-3 I was watching, where you get to switch between like Lightning and Hope.
Oh,
So-
10-2.
You mean no? Lightning is 13.
Oh, 13. Oh, maybe I like 13 then.
Is
Oh no.
Yeah. What's the other guy's name?
Sorry.
Oh, Riku and Pain and
Yeah.
Yuna. That was 10-2.
Yeah,
That's
that's
it.
10 and
Sorry.
2.
So 13-3 is the one that you actually play Lightning and Hope. So it's pretty cool.
Okay. So I mean, I think that would be interesting if they did something like that. You know, if they don't give us Crisis Core.
Right.
Yeah.
So so going on to like before we even got the remake, you know, they first teased it when it was a tech demo for PlayStation 3. Do you guys remember seeing that when that first came out?
Oh, I totally do.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I honestly
Actually,
did. Yeah.
was I watching you for the demo?
Do you guys?
was that...
No. This is before the remake was even announced. This was like 4 years ago.
Okay.
And basically, when PlayStation 3 first came out, they wanted to give us like an understanding of what kind of graphics the PS3 can push. and they released a Final Fantasy VII tech demo of just the opening cutscene where Cloud comes off the train. Do you guys remember when that first came out? Do you guys by chance remember?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
I vaguely remember.
Like, can you like explain like how that feeling was, Jeremy, when you first saw that?
Well, when I first saw it, and I didn't know it was a tech dome at the time when I was watching it, I was like, oh, they're finally doing a remake or a remaster version of Final Fantasy VII. Then when I saw the title of the video, which was tech demo, it just brought like a lot of disappointment because like, oh shit, I can't. This is not an actual game.
I know. I remember when we've because I like to watch all the PlayStation E3s, you know, when they reveal all the new stuff. So I remember that specific day when they released it, and you hear everybody's like, "Oh man!" You know what I'm saying? And I was like, "Oh man, like that would be so crazy," you know. And this was even before Advent Children even came out, you know. It was like we got to see like a real rendered version of what Cloud looks like, you know. And it was so crazy.
Oh
Yeah.
And then actually the cool thing is that we went to E3 last year and we got to see, we got to just kind of see a glimpse of what was going on with Final Fantasy VII, the remake. So that was pretty cool too.
Mm. But just going back to what we were first talking about as far as like what made Final Fantasy VII, stand out amongst the rest is like I think they gave us two characters that a lot of people just stand by, even like what Ashley was saying is like when you think of Cloud and Sephiroth, it's almost like Batman and the Joker, it's almost like Spider-Man and Green Goblin. It's like they're like the good guy and the villain of like video games, like all around,
Yeah, no, I mean their relationship, I mean, it's kind of seen throughout, even in things like what is that game that came out? Shucks.
I mean, it even got to the point where it's like you see them in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts. That's what it is, Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, yeah.
I had a brain fart, like a total brain fart. I was like, there was that game. You know that game. It was
that one game that we all played. It was a game.
I know.
Yeah, Sephiroth is such an iconic
villain,
enemy.
Yeah.
I think he's probably more popular than Cloud himself, but their duo is so, like he said, so popular that they just put them anywhere and then they can just be popular too. So I think Kingdom Hearts 3, because there was some issues with Square Enix and like the director that was taking over from Kingdom Hearts 2, there wasn't that much Final Fantasy characters, but they were pretty big in Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2.
Yeah, like, especially in 1.
One was
the boss, and actually
he was a secret boss. I thought that was cool. Like you had to like pull out all the stops to beat him. And so crazy. Get your life bar or HP to 1. You're like, oh no, I'm gonna die.
But it's like you don't anticipate how big they are, and it's like they're even Cloud is like in Smash Brothers,
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah,
it's like it's crazy. and then they made a movie about them, that takes place 2 years later after the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like it's always expanding, that's how big it is.
Yeah. There's the lore goes very deep, and it's just because I was actually reading the plots for Before Crisis and the Vincent spinoff because I didn't play those two, just to kind of get a full grasp what the whole world's like story is, even after the fact and before, and it can get pretty deep. So it was pretty interesting. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so Ashley, like going into the remake now, like what is the biggest changes as far as like the storyline goes?
The biggest changes, well, since I played it kind of a long time ago, I can't really pinpoint some big changes, to be honest. I actually forgot that we were eco-terrorists. I was like, oh my god, I'm a terrorist.
That's how the game starts off, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I totally forgot. Like I'm a terrorist. Like I'm a, what is it called? Anyway, so I couldn't pinpoint any differences, like big major differences, but they keep a lot of the story intact. So the thing that I realized was different was they do a really good job with the dialogue. So the banter between the characters are actually really entertaining. It kind of makes you want to play the non-fighting scenes, because fighting is probably, I want to say like Final Fantasy VII Remake's fighting system is probably the best fighting system I've played so far.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the lull between the fighting can get a little dull.
Yeah.
So the banter between the characters really helps. So I think, if anything, that's the biggest takeaway, as in change-wise, that I appreciate the most.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's kind of the big change too, right? There's dialogue. There wasn't.
Yeah.
You would have to read. I remember just staying up 2 a.m. I'm like, I can't
I was like
read
rolling
this
up,
anymore.
up,
I'm so
up.
tired.
Yeah.
I don't want to read this anymore. But this game is so interesting. But it's 2 a.m. and I'm like, time to sleep, man.
Yeah.
I know that they're saying, you know, it gives a chance for a lot of this, even the side characters, to have stories too as well.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was watching a lot of some. I was spoiling some of the story for myself by watching some of the remake playthrough. So like I noticed a lot of the side missions have kind of build up the side characters a lot. Like for example, I never really remembered like the other members of Avalanche that well, but when I was watching the remake, they kind of made them like a center point at certain times in the story.
Mm.
Oh, that's
Yeah, they
cool.
do. So you kind of get a bit more, how to say, understanding of who they are as people.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
As
have like a little bit more personality to them.
Yeah.
So now it's like you care more about even the supporting characters, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
You get really invested. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the best thing because then you really feel like you're immersed in the world. Like if you know one, like you can fall in love with one character, but when you know all the characters, then you're kind of like, oh shoot, this is like a world. Like I'm part of this world. So that's really
Yeah.
cool. I was gonna say, so Mike, I know you had pointed out that. Oh, I don't. Well, is it a spoiler that people know that it only goes to a certain point? Or
Yeah, everybody knows that.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
that it's separate. It's going to be separate games. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know
They-
you had
they
pointed
kinda-
out. Yeah. So I guess when you play this iteration of Final Fantasy, it only goes up to a certain point. So it's not the full game. So when people do buy it, they may be surprised when it's like to be continued, right?
Yeah, so even like before they even announced, I mean, not before, but after they announced the game, pretty much we all knew that it ends when he leaves Midgar.
Oh, okay.
Which is like still like in the beginning of the game. So everyone's just like, what? Like,
How long is the
how is
gameplay?
that? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how is that going to work? You know?
Right. That's
So, I
funny.
mean, how did you feel about it, Ashley, once you came to the end? Was it like, does it give you like a satisfaction? Like, okay, I'm looking forward to it. Or is it one of those endings? It's like, what? Like, it's done? Like, that's
Yeah.
it?
Well, no, I mean, I knew where it was going to end, but still at the same time, I was kind of surprised that it kept going. The game is actually longer than I think most people anticipated. Like I mentioned, when I completed it, it was a little less than 43 hours worth of gameplay, which is a lot.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of doing all the side quests and stuff too. So there's a lot of gameplay into it, but I knew that it was going to end at Midgar. I just didn't know how they were going to end it. So when I did come to the ending, I was interested. I was like, okay, this is very interesting. I definitely want to see where this is going because it is a remake. It's not a remastered. I kind of thought it was going to be like a remastered, but they did make a couple of changes that I was very curious about.
So crazy.
Yeah. So, but one thing that I didn't realize was the director for this game is the same as Kingdom Hearts 3. So there was a lot of different things in there that I kind of didn't really appreciate, but
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, can you now I'm intrigued.
Spicy.
Can you enlighten us on a little bit on
Like,
can you give us an example?
I was
Yeah.
like, oh, this is interesting. And then when the credits rolled and I saw his name, I was like, that makes a lot of sense.
Oh my gosh. I want a hint. No hint. I don't know.
No, just tell me. Like, okay, can you give us an example of a part that you didn't
Was it
appreciate?
Goofy? Did Goofy show up? What happened? Did
not
Donald
playing.
just say, oh?
I mean, it's not going to be so much of a spoiler, but it is going to be like, you won't see until the ending. That's why.
Oh no, it's okay.
Okay, so like.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I want this. I don't know if I want this right now.
I want it. Just tell me.
She's like, oh yeah.
It's not too bad. It's not too bad,
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
One of the enemies in the final battle it's actually like a split image of one of the enemies in Kingdom Hearts. And really, when I started fighting him, I was like, are you serious? Like, this is the enemy in Kingdom Hearts. And when I was done, I kind of went through some comments to kind of see people's reactions. They were saying the exact same thing. And they were very, like me, I was very upset. I was like, I didn't play Final Fantasy VII Remake to play Kingdom Hearts. I played it to play Final
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like, please increase my sales for Kingdom Hearts 3.
Fantasy. Basically,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was kind of a disappointment.
Oh
Mhm.
wow! I mean, that wasn't too spoilery. It was actually just enough. That was good. That was
Oh, that's good.
Now when I play it, I'm gonna be like, oh, that's what Ashley was talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what she
You'll
meant.
see, and you'd be like, "Oh, okay." But if you
Yeah.
didn't play Kingdom Hearts, you wouldn't mind because you never encountered that. But everyone who played Kingdom Hearts, at least from the comments that I saw, were pretty disappointed. Yeah.
Oh
Mm.
wow! Yeah, I saw a lot of tweets like from a lot of gamers. I follow a few gamers, and one of them had said like you have to buy Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's part of your childhood. It's part of your future. It's part of your like. They were just saying so many good things, and I was like, oh my goodness, like this is what we've been waiting for. This was, I mean, how long ago? It's since 1996. It's like or 97.
Yeah.
It's like how that's almost like
Yeah.
21, 2, 3, like 24 years. I'm so bad at math. I'm pretty sure people will be like that guy. Does he know math? I'm like, I can't
That's about
add
23
or subtract
years,
right now.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think I'm super excited to play it. I really want to play it, like especially since we're all staying at home. I was like, I want to just, I don't even care what it takes. But then,
I know it's like now's the time to sit down and just absorb it, right?
yeah, exactly. So
Okay, so
Woo.
Ashley, so since you completed the game, like how do you feel about it as far as like it being in parts?
Yeah, no, actually, I don't mind because, like I said, this was a very intensive game. There was a lot of content in there that you can enjoy, and it's good because Final Fantasy VII was definitely a story where it is supposed to be a little bit more intense, but so I think when it goes into parts, they can go a little bit deeper and they can get a little bit more detailed, and you can get definitely a little bit more invested because the original story was very complex.
Yeah.
And if you get a little bit more insight into everything, then it's good as a whole, complete story as a whole. It's gonna,
Got it.
yeah.
So this background, you don't see this background in the game, huh?
You see a better version of that.
I have the 8-bit version.
Here's the PS1 version.
Yeah, I have the 1996 PS1 version. But you do
Still pretty good.
you do get to see this, but you also get to see other characters. Besides Barrett, you get to see like, oh, I don't know if that's
My guess is you don't get to see Vincent.
not till later. He's later, right?
Yeah, because he's like later in the game. Maybe
Yeah.
I think you see him like when he was younger, but you don't see Vincent as a vampire.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, because it's after Midgar, so yeah.
Yeah.
What about Eris? Do you see Eris?
Yeah, of course.
Besides the
Yeah,
intro?
She's in the beginning.
I mean, besides the intro, like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
does he-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's in the beginning of the game.
Okay, I only remember one part that like was such an epic part that I could never forget, which was like the moment that she.
Oh yeah, that's not in the game. I think
Yeah,
that would
okay.
probably be in the next part.
Okay, and that'll probably be. I bet you that's gonna be the next break, right? They're gonna be like, boom, and you're gonna be like, I knew this was gonna happen, but I relived the feelings, the feels.
Mm.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll change it, so it doesn't happen exactly how we remember it.
Yeah.
So it kind of throws us off,
I have an inkling they're gonna change it, like change the ending completely.
Well, not the ending, but just like that part.
No, I mean, I think they're gonna change the ending. I have.
You think they're gonna change the ending?
Yeah. I was actually talking about this with Quincy. It's like, because after watching some of the playthrough, I was like, I think I understand now why they decided to go with a remake instead of remaster version. Because
And why is that?
It would have been like far easier and cheaper to just remake the game or remaster the game and update the graphics and all the models instead of remaking everything from scratch.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think they're also going to take liberties in order to change basically how the game plays out.
Right. That's cool. Yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun.
That makes sense because who wants to retell the same story from like 23 years ago? That's kind of
right. So how did you guys feel when you kind of were playing Final Fantasy as a kid growing up? Like, what would you say that experience was like Mike? Like, what would you say? Like, oh, hey, like going through the experience and the graphics and everything. Like, how did that make you feel?
Well, I think back then, you know, it wasn't so much the graphics, it was more of the storytelling. Like, I think in that day and age, it was more about the story than how it looks. I think
Right.
nowadays people only care if it looks good for
Yeah.
them to even want to pick up and play it, you know? If it
Right.
looks terrible, then they're just like, whatever, who cares if the story is good? It looks like old, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think back then the focus was the story, and which is why, you know, it's so big to this day. Final Fantasy VII is because the story behind it was just something that we just never experienced before in a game, you know.
Yep. Yeah. I
So I
agree.
mean, for me, remembering when I played it for the first time on PlayStation is like you were invested in these characters because there was so much story behind it, you know.
Yeah.
It wasn't as detailed as Ashley saying the new one is, but it was
Right.
enough for us to grab our attention, right?
Right.
To
Yeah.
be
And
like, okay, you know, like I want to know what's going on, you know.
right. And it was like for me, it brings back a lot of memories because I actually played the game when like it was summertime. I remember my friend had bought it. It was summertime. I went over to his house and I was like, "What the heck is this?" And then he was playing it and I was just watching it the whole time. I think we spent the whole week at his place. He was playing and I just remember we'd wake up, we'd play again, and I'm like, "Dude, how many hours have we put in?" I was like, "90 hours." And then like, but you know what's so funny, to this day me and my friends talk about that experience that we had every single time. Like he would play, then we take a break, we eat ice cream, then I'd play, and then we did, like we were all just kind of marathoning it all the way through until we finished. And then after it ended, we're like, oh my goodness, that was crazy.
Yeah, like Ashley, when did you get your game? Was it on Friday or a couple of days before Friday?
So GameStop actually called me to say to pay for my pre-order on Thursday. But what I
Mhm.
didn't realize is when I went to come into pre-order, like pay it off, they
Give it to
actually gave
you.
it to me that Thursday.
Yeah.
So I had it Thursday
Nice.
noon, and I've been playing it since. Yeah,
So on Thursday is when you started.
Thursday. Yeah, right after I got home.
When did you finish? When
So
did you finish?
Last night at 1 a.m.
yeah.
Yeah,
Just in
So
time for
from
the podcast.
Thursday, yeah, so from Thursday to yesterday night,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
43 hours.
That's
33
how you
Man,
know
hours,
it's
that's
a
like
good
2 hours.
game.
crazy.
That's straight grinding.
That's
Yeah,
how
that's
you know it's a
grinding,
good
man.
game. It's like
Props to you.
the midnight hours.
So Ashley's like, I totally understand, Quincy, what you're talking about because I did the
Yeah.
exact same thing.
I know. It's actually pretty funny. It's like shame on us. Like it's like so good that you did that. You know what I mean? Like went through that experience. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
I mean, but like that's kind of what, like, going back to your question, Mike, and like that's kind of why Final Fantasy VII was probably a big impact, because it was the first Final Fantasy that came out on PlayStation, right? So everything else was on SNES.
Yeah.
So you get the graphics, but also like the ability to kind of play while you and enjoying with other people, kind of building that experience with other people. It's that type of gameplay and situation where you grow up. It's nostalgia, right? You kind of build
Yeah.
up.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but I remember when anytime it came to a Final Fantasy game, I always got the game and the strategy guide with it
Oh,
because
strategy guide.
I always wanted just everything in the game that I could possibly get.
Oh,
So it,
Poster in the back.
yeah. No, I was gonna. So actually, do they have like side quests, or is there any quests that you know of, or is it kind of just linear, like not open world? You kind of just go like, oh, next one to next one, and then
Yeah, so like Final Fantasy 15 was an open world, but this one's not. It's linear. So
okay,
you have, in different chapters, you are able to do side quests if it gives you the option.
okay,
So every time it gave me side quests, I usually completed them all before progressing with the story. So you have the option to do them or not, but just because I wanted as much out of the game that I wanted, so I just played all the side quests. It's not really how to say, it wasn't so, a lot of the side character stuff, I think that's partly part of the timeline. They're not side quests, so the side quests are very basically like chore-ish. They're very
okay,
chore.
oh, I see.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so
Is it?
you don't miss any of the pretty big like side stories or whatever.
Wow.
So is it one of those games that you feel like you would need some type of guide, or it's like it kind of just like tells you where to get everything?
If people aren't accustomed to playing Square Enix games, then they probably would want to get a guide, because Square Enix has this really bad habit of making these really dumb mini games, and they give you good rewards if you do them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So a lot of people don't realize, like, oh, if you squat like a million times, you get this materia and
That was
stuff like
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mugos and Chocobos.
But like she's
Right.
saying, it would be hard for an average player because they'll just pass by it. You know, they wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
But if you played as much Final Fantasy games or Square Enix games, you know that they always put that kind of BS in there. So,
Yeah. So it's
I
worth
like-
your while to check out then.
yeah, like like Final Fantasy X. Like I don't know if you remember, but to get Lulu's doll, you had to
Oh
dodge.
yeah, Onion Knight,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
lightning 200
So-
times.
That
Bruh.
That
was fun.
Hey,
Too
just to
fun.
make sure you guys, they kept that same theme in this one too. So.
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay.
That's okay. I thought we lost you.
Yeah. He's like, I'm so
Yeah,
excited, bro. Take the camera. Where'd my camera go? I'm gone. Cool. That's cool.
But I mean, going back to what we're talking about is like from when I can remember when I was little to now, like I always got the game and the strategy guide, and I used to always play with my friend because he would like read everything while we play, and then we like switch off.
Right.
So like that's
yeah.
how I used to always play the Final Fantasy games, and we would just like complete it, you know, from beginning to end.
You have a good point. Actually, I kind of reminds me of like I used to play a lot of games like that. Just not even Final Fantasy, but just games in general back in the day. Like we would just take turns. Like for example, Resident Evil, where I would play like a certain chapter, and the next friend would play the next chapter. And so Final Fantasy VII would be like I would play up to like a certain point or a certain boss, and then I would switch out with my friend, and then just watch him play. Right? And we just keep alternating.
That's cool. Yeah. It's cool. Very cool.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was good times, honestly. I mean,
Those are good game days.
I think I was like 7 or 8 when I was first played on the PlayStation, and then
Holy
played it again
shoot.
when it came on the PS3.
Dang.
Because I just downloaded it for some odd reason and was playing it. But yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I would probably play it again like another 40 years if they do another remake.
Oh man, no, I'm just kidding. But I feel like they did a really good job. I'm glad that a good job in the sense that they're remaking this game in particular. Like I feel like this was such a huge part of everyone's like gaming like history. Like everybody like when you talk about like any Final Fantasy, it's like usually about 7, and then then you have your pick and choosing of whatever the case may be. But definitely this game, like the materia, and then attaching that to weapons, and the whole system was really complex but fun, right? It made it fun.
It was addicting.
It was addicting. Yeah, I remember.
So I want your guys' opinion on this. So I feel like Square Enix definitely made a bold move of making this game into separate games in order to tell the whole story. Do you think this might be the future of how we play games now, as far as like when it comes to storytelling? Because say, for example, they want to remaster 8 now with Squall, because even though it wasn't as popular as Final Fantasy 7, I know that the story with Squall was like one of the biggest like love stories, and it has a very big cult following because of that. So for example, like if they was to remake it, I mean, is that the future now where it's always going to be in parts for them to really tell us the story that they want to tell us, I mean, what do you guys think?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I agree. Like they need to separate it into separate parts to do that. I feel like it's more of like a money focused scene rather than like storytelling. Because I think you could essentially tell an effective story in detail without breaking it into like three separate games.
Right, because they've done it before. They've done it in the past. It's
15, 13.
Yeah, exactly. So I think he's got a point there. It's like they know how popular Final Fantasy VII is. They know probably where these like acts are going, and then they're kind of like, okay, well, people will pay, right? Especially since we're like creatures of habit. We want to complete things, right? You're not gonna just play like Act 1, Act 2, Final Fantasy VII, and then be like, okay, well, that was good. I'm done. You know what I mean? But yeah.
And plus, I mean, you were saying, right, actually, that it took you like around like 45 hours or so, just constantly playing it, right, to do the main story and all the side missions, again, all the hidden secrets, right? I mean, it's honestly a long time, but really to do all of that, to put the entire game I think in general it's not necessary. I would say it's not enough to warrant a full game, right? For a separate part.
Yeah.
Well, I
think
mean, let's be honest. Even like Kingdom Hearts or any of the older Final Fantasies,
Yeah.
it's always roughly about 45 to 50 hours each game, the whole
Right.
storyline.
Right.
So, like for this just one part to be 50 hours in itself, could you even fit that in one disc?
Well, no, but
It's a one game.
50 hours. I'm saying it's 50 hours with the side missions. It should be. I'm saying back then, if it was 50 hours for a complete game.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
it's. I mean, I understand it's a shift in like how games are released these days. People want to maximize profit. Where you want to create stories, but you also need to make more money. So obviously, you break it into separate games. I don't think Final Fantasy is the only thing that does that. I mean, the whole they do a lot of game companies do it with the releases of DLCs where they continue on the story like that.
Right.
But even that, they're only like an hour or two a piece.
Yeah,
though,
I know.
the DLC.
And this is just an extended version of it. That's all I'm
Right.
saying. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, I don't feel like you need to necessarily break the game down into 3 parts. You could essentially, combine it. You can combine maybe it into 2 parts, right?
Mhm.
You can do like how 10 and 10-2 were. You can do Final Fantasy 7-1 and 7-2 or something like that. Right, but then it's like it extends the game a lot longer, and you have more content, more of the story to deal with, as well as more of the side missions to delve into, right? And it kind of provides a little bit more replayability as well.
Mm.
I mean, I think that's like the biggest gripe I have just watching it is like, after you complete it, then what? It's going to be sitting on your shelf for the next 4 years. And you're waiting all this time in order to wait for the part 2 to come out. But I mean, what are you going to do in the meantime? Are you going to replay part 1? Sure. I mean, how many more times can you replay the same short span of the entire story?
Crazy.
No, I mean,
Yeah. No, I was going to ask you how you feel about it, Ashley.
I think a lot of the hours that I did put into it came from all the grinding I did too. With the side quests and the cutscenes too. They take a lot of time. So if you watch every single cutscene instead of skipping them, they definitely increase the time played. But I don't think that Square Enix can do this same model with any other new games. It has to be a game where people would definitely buy it in 2 parts, which was Final Fantasy VII. So I do agree it's like a money aspect where people are like, they knew that, hey, they're going to spend money because this is the game they grew up on. They wanted this, and they're going to spend whatever money that we charge them.
Yeah, that will pay for it.
Yeah. For it. And another thing I was kind of thinking, because I wasn't sure why they did it at first, but I was kind of thinking because the game is so large and such a graphics powerhouse that they couldn't produce the entire game in one huge project because when you think about Final Fantasy 15, that took them 10 years to make since they first announced it, which was like, I think it was Final Fantasy 13 Versus. It was announced as Versus.
Yeah, those are different
games.
games.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I remember.
So I think what they wanted to do was that they wanted to make the game come out on PlayStation 4 and then release what they have until now and then release the second version maybe for PlayStation 5. So that kind of would make a lot of sense. And like I mentioned, like people would still buy it because it's Final Fantasy VII regardless. So I think if they push the Final Fantasy 4 Part 1 on PlayStation 4 and they push the Part 2 on PlayStation 5, it will kind of force people to buy PlayStation 5 too. So a lot of money aspects and I had a lot of different opinions on my part, but who knows?
Yeah.
But I really don't think it's going to be the future of gaming. If it is, it's kind of unfortunate because I remember back in the days where you just kind of pop in a disc, you don't have to download any content, you can just play it right away. Right?
You get the full game right then and there.
Well, full game right then and there. And now it's just DLC this, DLC that, pay extra for a full priced game.
Yeah.
Kind of
Season pass, all this other stuff. Yeah. But you know what? When it comes to, and this is just a question again for you guys, is because this game, like you said, is loved by us so much, and because it is such a complex story, if Square Enix was to come out and ask us, hey, we'll remake this game for you from beginning to end, but it'll be the same exact game, just better graphics, just to shut you guys up. Or we'll make it into parts, but it's gonna be more in depth, more story, better detailed, better, content. Would you accept saying, okay, you know what, I'll take the parts over you just shutting me up and just making it look nice? Like, which one would you choose?
I mean, you know what? I think with the technology now, I mean, like I think you can have both. You know what I mean? But I think nothing beats a great story. I've seen a lot of games with really good graphics and really good, features that it has. But
Mhm.
when you fall in love with the characters, that's what kind of keeps you for 25 plus years. You know what I mean? You're in love with the characters. You love the story, and you talk about it with your friends like every single time, and you live the experience. And I feel like something like the story just can't be beat on that note.
But I mean, that being said, like, what would you choose? Would you choose the better story or just the same game with better graphics?
I mean, look at my background.
I think it just depends like who you are as a gamer, right? I think for like us, we would probably choose the storyline over graphics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like
so.
it's like a pick your poison almost. It's like, okay, you made it into parts, but the game is, like Ashley was saying, so much bigger than what it was.
Right.
With
exactly.
it's such a graphic powerhouse. There's so much more in-depth content as far as characters go. It's like, would you rather have that, or would you just want Final Fantasy VII like we remember, but with just better graphics?
Right. Exactly.
I think you can have both, though.
I think in this day and technology, you can have both for sure.
But you got to remember too, like Ashley was saying, it took them 10 years to make Versus or Final Fantasy. Was it 15?
15.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, they announced that they were going to remaster Final Fantasy VII back when PS3 first came out, and this is as far as they got. It's like, you got to understand, like, these people, it takes them time to create this much stuff, and it's like, we're expecting so much at the same time. Is like, what do you want us to wait 30 years and then they'll give us the complete game, or do you want to just start playing it now?
No, I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, exactly. I want the whole game now. Instant gratification. It reminds me just of last night. I was watching My Hero Academia, and I was like, shoot, man, they just ended the story right there, and I felt just like, oh man, I can't wait a whole nother year for this story to continue. I'm sure that you felt the same way, Ashley. You're like, you know what? I have to wait. When are they gonna release the next one? I don't even know if they've launched it.
They haven't said yet.
So it may be another 5 years until part 2 comes out.
I know. See, exactly. So it's kind of like you're kind of left like, oh, what do I do? You know what I mean? So
that's true.
Yeah, and by then you'll have the PS5, full out in production and in the market.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost kind of like a TV show, right? Like, they gave us the first season, now we gotta wait until second season comes out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Kind of like, what's that now?
Cool.
Yeah, exactly what you were mentioning, Quincy, about like just kind of waiting for the next seasons and stuff like that. It was pretty, like, the seasons between them, they're pretty long too.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
But I mean, besides all, like, this whole discussion, I know that everybody's saying that this is a must play game for sure.
Yeah, I heard that too.
And I mean, going back to what Ashley was saying about the ending, I mean, the ending was pretty satisfying to the point where it's like, it's okay, I'm ready for the second part, right? It's not like totally just like, what the F, right?
I think if that's kind of what I was thinking while we were having this discussion. I was actually thinking of, because we're the generation that played Final Fantasy VII, the original. Like, I'm thinking of the newcomers who have never played.
I know. People who were born after, right?
Yeah, like maybe even if it was their first Final Fantasy game,
right.
Generally. So if they actually watch that ending, they're probably gonna be like, "Dude, what the fuck?"
I know this is
okay.
Why did I spend so much money on this incomplete game?
Yeah, so I mean, because I kind of know where it's going, and I kind of have an idea of how it might
forgiving.
end because we played it before, right? And
yeah.
Hoping they're gonna head that way. I'm pretty satisfied with staying put, but I can see the upset for anybody who.
Okay.
Background, yeah.
Right. New to the.
Because, like, for me personally, I wasn't super stoked when I finished it. I wasn't like, yeah, that was the best. And, oh, it's so worth it. Oh, I'm so glad I played this game. I'm gonna play it again. I was like, oh, okay. Well, that's how that is.
Oh man.
Right.
No, but that's
Yeah.
me. That's just me personally.
Yeah. That's funny.
It leaves you wanting more,
I was
right?
very interested into seeing how the story will play out, and the fighting system, like I said, was super good. So I'm excited to go back and play the extra content that gets released
Oh,
after
good.
you beat it.
That's cool. Yeah.
So it definitely did its part then to make you still interested in playing the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's funny. Wow.
All right. I think that's about it as far as my questions. Does anybody else want to touch bases on anything? I think we kind of hit everything.
Yeah, that was a lot. That was cool. Yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
your insight, Ashley. Because
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It added a lot to the conversation, especially
Yeah.
the excitement. The excitement.
I know, man. Jeez.
I did want to ask though, like if they were to like announce another Final Fantasy remake, what would you want to be remade?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like 13. So I just looked it up actually. So 13.3 wasn't called 13.3. It was actually called Lightning Returns. But it was the third iteration where like Lightning is reborn, and then there's
That
hope
was
and
the only
everything.
one I couldn't get into for some odd
I love
reason.
that
The
one.
story seemed really weird.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
super weird.
Yeah,
Like,
it
only
was-
because it kind of erased everything that you knew, and it's like, okay, well, you're this god, right?
I
or
also
whatever
didn't
you
like
are.
the combat in that one too much.
Yeah,
It was
I think-
very very grindy, like more so than the other Final Fantasy
Right.
game.
I think it's just like for me, I really like Lightning. Lightning was like my favorite character. Like she was cool. Her sister Sarah was cool, and I was like, this story is the best. But I mean, it's kind of hard to compare, that to Final Fantasy because Cloud and Sephiroth is iconic, and you just can't forget that. And like that spawned a movie, not the first movie, but the movie Advent Children. So it was like
Mhm.
it was awesome. Like when you see the fight scenes in Advent Children, you're like, holy shoot! Like this is what it would be like if I didn't have to play it, and these guys would fight each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
But I think if they was to remake another game, I think no doubt it would be 8 because Squall is a pretty, famous
Well-known.
character also.
Yeah.
Yeah, well known.
Yeah.
I agree.
I would play that. I haven't played 8, but if they did remake it, then I would definitely pick it up. I was
Yeah.
actually considering putting it on my Switch too.
Well, and plus, it's like, how do you follow up Final Fantasy VII? You know what I mean? That's like scary, right? Like they're probably like, can we top like one of the best like games of all time? And
One of the best sold Final Fantasies.
Well, I
Yeah,
think that's why
exactly.
Final Fantasy is such a big name is because all the games are different than all the other ones.
Agreed.
It's like a complete different story.
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah.
And it's like we all hold a different type of connection with each game. Just like how I was saying, I didn't really like Final Fantasy 13, but you loved Final Fantasy 13.
Right, exactly.
What did you not like about it, Mike? Did you not like
The character, like progression as far as like being attached to these characters and like caring about the characters. I couldn't.
What?
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't like 10. 10 is like the ultimate one for me, with Titus and like Yuna and their connection and how they like started to fall in love with each other, but all this other stuff was going on, and then Titus had tied with his dad, who's like the biggest villain in the whole game.
Yeah,
It's like
was
that whole
crazy.
story was like so interesting to me.
That game actually created my username for a lot of my games and my emails. Like Titus is like is everywhere. Like even he knows like all my emails, like when I was that age, all my usernames, password. Oh no, not password. Sorry, just my username.
Oh, I know your password.
Just the username. That was fun. Yeah, but I love 10 too. I mean, for me, it would have to be like 13, 7, 10. Top 3.
13, 7.
13, 7, 10.
13, 7, 10. Top 3.
But you know what? It was even hard for me to get into, what was it, 15 with what's his name? Noctis. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
I did it.
I like
That was
15 a
great.
lot.
They had a
Just
good
because
stuff.
it was actually one of the first. It was open world. I thought that was pretty.
Yeah.
I
That
thought
was,
it
Yeah, and the combat was actually pretty fun to do as
It
well.
was.
With the combinations with your teammates.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like a extensive Kingdom Hearts type.
Right.
Where-
Yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, that's pretty different. Like it's like, oh, they took what they learned from 13 and made it better for 15.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like thinking that this battle system is probably, like I said, the funnest because
Yeah.
you get the immersiveness of being able to control your character individually or switch between. And with everyone having a designated role, you kind of play with 13 fighting system, which is the paradigms, right? So you kind of go switch between if you're like a close stack, like fighter, sword fighter, or a Tifa, or like, you know, different other characters.
Love it.
It's a combination of what they've done so far.
Yeah, I just like the fact that your normal attacks felt like they did damage to enemies.
Yeah, as opposed to having to grind all the way until these levels where you can beat any of the bosses. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna keep dying, and it's like I guess I gotta grind. Find somewhere to grind.
What's good about it is that it's still challenging. Like you can still be I was still pretty a high level on some of my fights, but it forces you to be smart instead of button mashing. So you actually come out of it feeling very, like, how to say, very good, because you feel like, oh shoot, I'm such a badass. Like, look at me, like I'm just, like, killing everybody,
dodging like a master.
Yeah, dodging and curing like a pro.
Yeah.
I just hope that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, well, I was just saying that's what makes it more realistic. It's like you have like so much control. You can move, you can dodge, you can avoid things. It makes it like very versatile. So
yeah, so I'm excited to try it. So
I want to talk about it. No, I'm just kidding. No, what are you gonna say, Mike?
No, I was just going to say, like, I hope all the work that you put into it and taking the time to find all the items and weapons, that it carries over when the next game comes out, you know?
Yeah.
As far as, like, you don't lose anything. It's like all the shit I worked hard for and putting 50 hours in carries over to the next one.
I guess you'll just have to read off of your save memory.
That's what I would think, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Probably load from your previous save or something like that and kind of carry it over. Like I would be super upset.
Bit erased, right? No, those are the sad moments.
I went through all this BS for nothing. Like I'm just gonna do it all again.
Like your little brother or little sister is like, "Where's my game? Where's my game? I put 40 hours in it." It's like it says 10 minutes, and you're like,
I couldn't imagine going through the desert.
There was only 3 slots, and I just wanted to replay this part over again, and I deleted your 40 hours of work. I was like, oh god.
That's when you're just in tears by then, yeah.
Yeah. Glad that's not the case anymore. I'm so glad that's not the case anymore. So.
Yeah, for me, I would personally say 9. Just because I think, it's been said that Final Fantasy 9 is like the personal favorite of the game creator.
That's the one with Zidane, right?
Zidane, yeah.
It's what I hate the most.
But it's apparently the most it's the most well liked by the game creators and the music.
We're like, who cares? Who cares about the game?
I like 9. 9 was good. Yeah. I beat that like 4 or 5 times. That was a good game.
Oh.
I mean, there's a lowest selling one though, but it's like apparently when I was watching people talk about it, like apparently like, on the surface layer it's like very kid friendly, very fantasy, fantasy like. But on the bottom layer it's like very, very deep storyline and it touches on like a lot of I guess a lot of themes and mini storylines that tie the characters into each other.
Right.
So I would like to see like how they would remake that, if they did.
That makes sense.
Who knows?
Good times.
How about you, Ashley? Is there anyone that you would think that you would like to see remastered?
Well, since 7 was the only one I played before 10, 10's fine. Like they shouldn't remake that. I wouldn't buy it if they did because it's the graphics are still pretty good and it's still pretty entertaining. So I mean, but with the way they did 7, like the way they have done it, if they remake anything before that, I would play it for sure. Like I would play 6, I would play 8, I would play 9. If they remastered it, I would definitely, or remake it, I would definitely play it. So anything after 10, I think they shouldn't.
Yeah, and they need to release it all on the PC.
Oh my goodness, that'll be the end. Once console, like when Final Fantasy is Final Fantasy is
on PC.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can release it.
Yeah,
It's just
and I
well
think
played.
you can download 7 right for your PC if you wanted to.
Yeah,
the
you
old 7.
Yeah, the
Just-
original.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the old Final Fantasies, like I think 3, 7, 10, 10 2, I think is also. I don't remember, but yeah.
10-2 is the all girl one. I like that one too. That one was fun. That was fun, man.
It seems like you like the girl Final Fantasy games, Quincy.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like the girl leads. Like, where's the girl leads at? Like, I like Eris. I like Tifa. I like all of them.
Yeah.
Oh, so okay, guys. Okay, I have a question for you guys then.
Okay.
Team Aerith or you guys Team Tifa?
Oh, Tifa
yeah,
all day.
Eris.
Tifa all day.
Eris.
Eris.
You know, like the more soft people like Eris, right? And then the kind of like rugged, hard people like Tifa.
No,
She-
I like her
Guilty.
roles
She'll
of
rough
her
you up.
relationship
That's why she'll
with
rough you
Zack
up.
in Crisis Core.
Yeah.
I loved her in Advent Children too. She played such a
Yeah.
good role.
She was
yeah.
good. Yeah, she was good. I liked her there. But
So I have this theory that anyone that likes Aerith better hasn't played Crisis Core.
Whoa,
I'm
no.
not. No, I mean that's probably a good theory. That's probably a good
I have
theory.
played Crisis Core. I know she was like the first, like Zack was her first love.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for the spoiler.
You're welcome. It's only been like 10 plus years. But
Oh, she says it in the original. She actually says it in the original, like the original Final Fantasy VII. She says that.
oh yeah, that's true too. But yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my.
But yeah,
goodness.
there's a reason why Aerith is so fond of Cloud in the original Final Fantasy is because of Zack and Crisis.
Zack, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, these stories are awesome, man. Awesome. Make me want to weep a
know.
little bit.
It's so deep.
Yeah.
so
I want to
deep.
I just want to lay in this garden right now. Here I go. Yeah. Oh, awesome.
Live stream go into you.
I think that's about it. I mean, was there any other topics that you guys wanted to touch on?
No, I'm good.
No,
That was
yeah.
awesome.
Okay, perfect. That concludes our today's podcast with MetaTalks. Again, special guest Ashley, thank you again for joining us. But as far as like you guys, did you guys play it yet? What did you guys think of it? Let us know in the comments. Other than that, we'll see you guys next time. Peace. Hey, what's going on? This is Mike.
Carrie,
And Quincy with MetaTalks with MetaHuman Entertainment. We know you like podcasts.
we know you like us.
I know I do.
So follow us on Spotify.
And subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube.
So you never miss an episode.